Members may join by WebEx video conference or by phone. With the exception of any exempt item, this meeting will be live streamed via YouTube. For those of you watching on YouTube, I'm the one in the white hair and the chains. Unless something quite untoward happens, this meeting will be the last of the Inverclyde Council 2017 to 2022. So I'd like to thank most sincerely all of the officers and every single member, all of whom have tolerated and indulged me over the past 5 years. Especially I'd like to thank previous provosts, Michael, Robert and Chano for their advice. I also thank all my friends in the council, both of them. Councillor Jim McLeany has thoughtfully added item 12, acknowledging the retirement of elected members to the agenda. This item will give members an opportunity to comment on the contributions made by those councillors. Unless there are any objections, I propose 2 changes in the running order, namely that we take item 9 immediately after item 3. That's to allow Ruth to attend a very important meeting of directors, including directors from other authorities. And also to take item 11, that's Jim's item, immediately before item 10, which is business in the agenda. Finally, I leafed through the Bible the other night to find an opposite quotation, chapter and verse for us today. And the best I could come up with was, "Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth." So I think we can all agree you're all snookered. So firstly, I will go to apologies and declarations of interest. And here, Lindsay will keep me right. Okay?
We have apologies from Councillor Maguire and Councillor Chris McElhaney. Obviously, we'll now move to roll call. The following members please indicate if they are present at the meeting. Councillor Acfeld.
Remotely.
Provost Brennan.
In present.
Councillor Brooks.
Chamber.
Councillor Fogarty.
Remotely.
Councillor Crowther.
Remotely.
Councillor Hurley.
Remotely.
Councillor Boyan. Councillor Jackson.
Remotely.
Councillor MacLeod.
Remotely.
Councillor McCabe.
Remotely.
Councillor McCormick.
Remotely.
Councillor Mackenzie.
Remotely.
Councillor McVeigh.
Remotely.
Councillor Moran.
Remotely.
Councillor Nelson.
In chambers.
Councillor Quinn.
Remotely.
Councillor Becky.
In chambers.
Councillor Robertson.
Remotely.
And Councillor Wilson.
In chambers.
Are there any declarations of interest?
Provost.
Jim, Councillor McElhaney.
I'm attending remotely as well, thanks.
Sorry, Councillor McElhaney.
Are there any declarations of interest? No. We've taken the apologies, and so we move on to the minutes of meetings of the Inverclyde Council committees, subcommittees and boards. The Inverclyde Council, 17th of February 2022. I declare this is a true record. Page 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, and 72. The Audit Committee, 22nd of February 2022. Channel.
Provost, I move this is a true record.
Thank you, Channel. Page 73 and page 74. The Health and Social Care Committee, 24th of February 2022. Robert.
Promise, I move this is a true record.
Thanks, Robert. Page 75, page 76, and page 77. The Inverclyde Council, 24th of February 2022. I declare this is a true record. Page 78, page 79, and page 80. The Planning Board, 2nd of March 2022. David.
I confirm this to be a true record, Provost.
Thank you, David. Page 81, page 82, page 83, page 84, page 85, 86, 87, 88, page 89, page 90, and page 91. The Local Review Body, 2nd of March 2022. David, again.
I confirm this to be a true record, Provost.
Thank you, David. Page 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, and page 97. The Environment and Regeneration Committee, 3rd of March 2022. Michael.
I move this as a true record, Provost.
Page 98, page 99, 100, 101, 102, 103. The Grants Subcommittee, 7th of March 2022. Graham.
I move this as a true record, Provost.
Page 104, page 105, page 106, 107, and 108. Jim,
I think we might be muted.
is he mute?
We
Jim, are you mute?
No, I could hear. You just went quiet there, Provost. Apologies. 109, Education and Communities. I move this as a true record.
Thanks, Jim. I'll try not to go quiet again. Page 109, 110, 111, 112, 113, 114, and 115. Policy and Resources Executive Subcommittee, 10th of March 2022. Stephen.
I move the minutes as a true record, Provost.
Thanks, Stephen. Page 116, 117. That's it. The Policy and Resources Committee, 22nd of March 2022. Stephen again.
Yeah, I move the minutes as a true record, Provost.
Thanks, Stephen. Page 118, 119, 120, 121, and 122. The Local Police and Fire Scrutiny Committee, 24th of March 2022. Tommy.
I move this as a true record, Provost.
Thanks, Tommy. Page 123 and 124. The Planning Board, 6th of April 2022. David.
I confirm this to be a true record, Provost.
Thanks, David. Page 125, 126, 127, and 128. The Local Review Body, 6th of April 2022. David.
I confirm this to be a true record, Provost.
Thanks, David. Page 129, 130, 131, and page 132. That concludes the minutes.
So I would want to raise a matter.
Was it? Sorry.
It's on page 81. It's the well, see the second last paragraph, talking about the vote, it says following a roll call vote. And it says, so many voted in favour of the motion, and then so many voted in favour of the motion. One of those is an amendment, the first one is an amendment.
Right, okay.
That needs to be correct.
Can you confirm that's the case, David?
Yeah, I confirm. Yep.
Right, thanks.
I should have spotted it. But,
Yeah.
that's why I've got a vice chair.
Right.
Sorry?
That's it.
That's in it.
Yes, did you bring?
I was just
I
testing
thought
to see
you
if
may
you
have-
watched.
You may have a party group.
Thanks very much. Isn't it?
And it's been co-opted now. Is that all right? Can we do that?
That's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Right,
Thank
okay.
you.
You're definitely happy with everything else. Now we go to item 3. Item 3 is the review of the Inverclyde Council and brackets prohibition of alcohol in designated public places bylaws to 2010.
Provost, apologies, I don't want to make a point of order. But we never covered the General Purposes Board, 13th of April.
When?
General Purposes Board minutes, the 13th of April, 2022.
I'm not sure. I'll have to ask for advice on that, on this.
Thank you. Yeah, we did have those down on the agenda, but I don't think they were tabled today. I don't think they were ready, so I have to pick that up at the following meeting. But he's
Right.
actually right, it was on the agenda, but they were to follow.
They will be there for the next meeting, Christopher.
But
Does
we
that
won't
help
have
you
the
at all?
next-
Pardon?
we won't have the next meeting, Provost.
Well, we will have a meeting, yeah. You presumably will want to be at the next meeting. Because I'm talking about the meeting after the election. I can't do any, we can't do any sooner than that.
I'll let the officers work out the implications of it. But yes, obviously it'll be a different council and there'll be different people having to propose the minutes. So there might be a little bit of red tape involved.
Right, okay.
Who's the chair?
Okay.
Who?
James
Jerry Doreen.
He's retired.
Jerry Doreen. Right, okay, we'll leave it at that. We'll leave it at that for a moment. Progress with the meeting. As I read out earlier, it's the review of the Inverclyde Council bylaws on alcohol in designated public spaces. The proposals to extend the scope of the 2010 bylaws take account of more recent housing developments. Following a review and 2 consultations, there were no objections to these proposals. If we agree the recommendations today, the new bylaws will be submitted to Scottish ministers for confirmation. I think it's Anne who's in charge of this particular item. No, it's not, and it's not, it doesn't even look like that. It's Ian, right?
Thank you, Provost. Yeah, I've got no additional points to raise. I'm happy to take any questions.
Are there any questions?
No.
Yes.
John?
If I could just come in there, it's not a question, it's a comment. And basically, it's really just to thank the officers for this paper. And I note that many of the issues that have been put in place were issues that I had actually raised previously prior to any consultation. And it's really just to thank officers for taking consideration and note of what I had said, and that they have actually now been implemented. So all I can add to that is thank you.
No, thanks, John. That's John's telling the officers here that he's very pleased that they did what he told them to do. Can we agree with the recommendation?
Agreed.
Sorry.
I was just going to ask a question for clarity. I was looking, people in the Wicket Marina are not allowed to vote, yet I see that the marina is included in this. I would have thought that it should have been excluded, but, because I mean, a lot of people will sit on their boats and have a drink and things like that.
Your question is perfectly valid, but and as why would you be excluded?
Well, people are excluded from voting if they've got a boat in the marina. So they're excluded from voting, yet this seems to apply to them.
So that,
Well,
if
it seems like a double standard, if you know what I mean.
if they wish to drink in the open air, for example,
Yes.
near the marina, they shouldn't be prosecuted.
Well, they're obviously drinking on boats in the open air.
Right, okay.
That's my question.
Did you help?
Yeah.
And
But yeah, I mean, I guess what I would say is that we went out in consultation twice on the plan with no objections. Ultimately, people could come in from elsewhere outside of Inverclyde, and they would be caught by the bylaws as well if they're confirmed. So, I mean, as ever, we will keep these things under review as we're obliged to by statute, and we'll liaise with Police Scotland over that as well.
Okay.
Provost.
are you quite happy with that?
Yeah.
Right.
Channel. Maybe I could help a bit, maybe make it a bit worse, I don't know. But if you're on a boat, it's like being in the garden of your house. In an area, we'll say, now use Inverclyde, where you're down at the beach, you can sit out in your own garden and have a drink. You won't be charged with it. It's where people walk about with canister, as I call it, and that's them. And if I'm sitting on my boat having a party, I am not on dry land. I'm on there, and it's like being in your garden. So they don't come in there. The only time they come onto your boat, there's a fight or there's something happening that you shouldn't be doing, and then that's it. But for dry land and the rain land, and that's it. I actually was checking other stuff. So that I can assure you that's what you, and that should be the way it's taken. But thanks, Provost.
Thanks very much, Jim. Can we agree the recommendation?
Great.
Now, as I said earlier, we will now move to item number 9, the McLean Museum and Art Gallery Management Policies, which is on page 93. Okay. Thanks very much. Thank you. The McLean Museum and Art Gallery Policies and Service Improvement Business. This is a remit from Education and Communities, which has decided in favour of an improvement plan to meet the Arts Council accreditation scheme, and that this would be remitted to the next council, namely this council. I think that Ruth may wish to speak on this.
I've got nothing further to add. It's just remitted to the council as trustees of the Watt Museum and institution.
Right. Does any other member wish to speak on this?
No.
No. Are we agreed? Do we agree with the recommendation? Agreed. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Now, we are on to we're on to item number 4, which is the statutory meeting location and decisions by lot. And we need to suspend standing orders before we discuss this matter. Are you agreed that we suspend standing orders?
Agreed.
I take it that's agreement. As we all appreciate, the statutory meeting is critical to the life and work of the council. The town hall has been booked provisionally for Thursday, 19th of May 2022, but there remain a number of what ifs. For example, what if a member is ill and can't attend in person? and what if there is a tied vote at that particular meeting? And I think Ian is able to elaborate and elucidate on this topic.
Excuse me, Roberts, could I make a comment? You said if a member is ill. I understand from this it only comes into effect if the member has COVID. Illness does not count. If you're ill, you don't come. And we end up, 2 people are ill, we have 20 instead of 22. But what this paper is saying, if you have COVID, you can come in through the hybrid. It's something I frankly disagree with. But we can...
I'm not doubting you at all, Ian, but I want to seek corroboration from Ian.
Thank you.
Does it refer only to COVID? Any of them, cholera, typhus, and so on?
They don't.
They don't count.
Yes, sir. So yeah, no, thank you, Prof. So I have to take any questions. Yeah, the basis upon which we brought the report forward, Councillor, was that the officer recommendation that we seek to hold an in-person meeting for the reasons set out in the report, but that should an elected member be unable to attend because they have COVID, then our recommendation would be that we need to hold a hybrid meeting and deal with it on that basis, as we set out. But ultimately, today officers are seeking delegated authority for the Chief Executive to go ahead and finalise arrangements and consult with a strategic leadership forum in the course of doing so.
Right.
Thank you.
Do you want to speak further on this? No, you don't.
Take any question.
Graham.
Thanks very much, Provost. I know standing orders are suspended, but I still like to stand. Yeah, it's just the sort of tone of the paper before us today, Provost, is understandable because we've just gone through the pandemic. We now have an endemic. We have the COVID-19 or the SARS virus, which creates the challenge of COVID. I'm not sure how your social life's going, but my wife and I were at the King's Theatre recently and we were back to normal. Staff had masks on, but the people were out enjoying the King's Theatre play. It was a very good play. I recommend it, Waitress. Recently, coffee shops and various other places where people have to work, the working class, your average man and lady in the street has to go out to work. And I just wonder whether this paper doesn't give the leadership I would like it to give. And I would suggest that the leadership that the 22 members that the new council have, whoever they are, is the fact that we want to move Inverclyde forward and see a positive reaction as we recover from the pandemic. And if we seem to take a step back and say, oh, just in case we can stay in the house and we can, have a hybrid meeting, it doesn't give that positive attitude that maybe a joiner, he can't stay in the house and fix your door, or the person in the coffee shop can't stay in the house and serve the coffee. So I just really like to see that the council has a leadership context in the citizens of Inverclyde, and I would like to see an in-person meeting of the full council. So I would like to see that we don't go to hybrid. If you're not well, you've got a broken leg, you've got a heart attack, of course, you're in hospital, but that's how the cookie crumbles, and that's how it has sat in the last 5 years, etc. That's how it's always been. And I'm not sure that we're showing good leadership if we're still backpedaling on COVID-19.
Thanks, Jim. From my own personal experience, I contracted COVID. I'm sure it was in a theatre at the beginning of this month. I was wearing a mask, but not all people who were there were masked. I was almost had to be because of my persistent cough, which is available for everyone today. But in any case, I'm not arguing with you. I wonder if any other member wishes to speak on this topic. Channel.
Provost, it's actually 2 parts to it. The first one is on no casting vote with the Provost. If a Provost is chairing a meeting, surely he's got a casting vote. Other than that, every convener of every committee then loses the same right. And I think that's wrong, because no matter where you're sitting here or in boardroom 1 holding the meeting, it's a legal brought meeting. Surely the conditions stay. And I think that if you're doing that to the Provost, he's been alienated, and yet every other convener at any meeting has a right for to have another vote. So from that one, that's it. During the last 2 years, it's been absolutely horrible. It's the worst time I've ever spent. I miss these chambers more than I'll say I miss my lunch. And getting into the chambers is the main thing. And I know we've had various things going through the town where people couldn't see folk, and it was a big thing. Well, we might not be able to see them in person, but we've got to look at things to help run the council. Whether I like it, you like it, and the first thing we've got to do is make sure councillors are safe, staff are safe, and we get on with the job. And if that means having to use the appropriate systems that we can use for people in the chambers or in their house or anywhere, they could even be in Australia, it could be anywhere, they should be able to take part in these meetings if that's how they feel. And I just feel strongly that. I think there's a lot of good things. In fact, I have actually spoke to other people because in certain care homes, people were complaining about, and the safety of the folk in those care homes are paramount, and they'll have to do something like this so that you can see your person in there, or even it comes to hospitals where you can't see somebody. And that's been awful for a lot of people. And I know how I felt. I certainly would support anything that keeps this council working. And yes, look at the system and see how good it is. Get it better. It will improve, we'll get used to it, but there's better equipment. So from that point of view, I'd be supporting the officers' promise. But I'm still worried about how they suddenly take a vote off. Well, you'll be us, you'll be on the other side at that time. But seriously, the other province that come in, if they're going to lose a vote on that, then so does everybody else. It's not in this chamber. That's what they're saying. That's wrong.
Thanks very much, John. And I hope when you said that I'd be on the other side, that this
Over
would be
here.
the other side of life. You know?
Yeah. No.
I tend to stay
This
above
side of
it
life.
as long
This side of life, probably.
Stephen?
Yeah, thanks, Provost. With the amount of coughing that's going on in the chamber, I'm glad I'm sitting at home this afternoon, I have to say. But, I mean, in terms of Chandler's point, I think Ian will clarify that there are certain items under standing orders that the Provost doesn't have a casting vote on, and therefore this protocol is to apply to those circumstances only. It doesn't mean that the Provost doesn't have a casting vote. It's simply those matters that he doesn't have a casting vote on, or he or she doesn't have a casting vote under standing orders. With regard to the statutory meeting of the council, my understanding is that the agreed position of the council is that going forward, we would offer hybrid meetings anyway as our default position to encourage a better life-work balance, etc. in terms of that. So actually what's been suggested in terms of the statutory meeting is saying to all elected members, in an ideal world, we'd like everybody present at the meeting physically because of the special nature of that particular meeting. And I think that's a perfectly reasonable suggestion. But I also think that if somebody had COVID, they shouldn't lose the opportunity to participate in that meeting. So I'm quite happy to move the recommendations in the report.
Thanks, Stephen. Councillor Moran. Robert.
Aye, thank you, Provost. I just reflect some of the views that's already been expressed. Back the bad old days, at one time, if you were ill and you couldn't make the meeting, it could have meant it. When it came to a vote, you would lose out, so they had to get you in there. And I get taken in practically in a wheelchair one time because I'd pleurisy and I shattered my lung, and it put me in just to get my vote, which was disgraceful. There was other members who were in the same position and weren't allowed. They had to somehow manage to get into that building for the sake of being at a meeting. It was absolutely disgraceful. I've had this COVID and I had it really bad, and I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. Hybrid working is the way forward. We're living in a society now where technology should be fully embraced and endorsed, and you'll probably think that the Scottish Parliament and probably the Westminster Parliament are going to use this system going forward. I don't see what all the argument is here. I think it's a fantastic idea. If you can't make the chambers, you can still take part in the meeting, Provost. And I fully endorse Councillor McCabe's views, and I'm quite happy to second the recommendation.
Thanks very much, Robert. I'm going to go to Elizabeth, Councillor Robertson, but bear in mind that we do have a motion at the moment. Right, Elizabeth.
Thanks, Provost. Just to make the point in general in terms of hybrid meetings, I think our ability now to have hybrid meetings has been a bit of a game changer, and it's been a field leveller in many ways. So I think that retaining that generally is a very much the right way to do if we want to ensure that our council is as inclusive as it can be moving forward. In terms of the specific statutory meeting, I think everybody is agreeing that we would like everybody to be there in person if that is at all possible. And the sort of comment I would make in terms of the practicalities of a plan B where that's not possible in this particular instance would be that I've spoken quite a lot about risk management over the course of the last 5 years, more than I ever thought I would, I have to say. And just having this as a known risk that we do have to manage, knowing that we've actually not made firm decisions here, but we're leaving it open for us to make the decision that's the right decision to make closer to the time when we know what the context is at that particular time, knowing how quickly things in the COVID world have changed, I think is the right way to go. So I'm quite comfortable with what's noted here, that we're not tying our hands now to a particular course of action. We've noted a risk and we're prepared to make the right decisions closer to the time as to what we actually do about a plan B.
Thanks very much, Elizabeth. Thank you. Jim Anderson, you want to speak? Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Provost. Yeah, I fully understand and support our hybrid protocol. New ways of working. Everybody has been affected some shape or form in the last 2 years, where you've contracted COVID yourself or members of your family or friends, certainly. So going forward, it's been a game changer, I think, as Elizabeth says. The problem I've got with this is that we're going back the way to having insisting on a face-to-face meeting. So I'm just trying to square that away with our new ways of working. We're trying to encourage people, new blood, for want of a better description, into the council, because the hybrid, you can do things, you don't have to take a whole day off work type thing. If you find a space, you can log in from remotely, that type of thing. Although, having said that, I've got misgivings of the hybrid remote login, etc. Particularly when, for example, face-to-face meetings, you can see, you can gauge the room better. You can see what's going on. You can see the discussions, the under breath comments, etc., which is sometimes wanted, sometimes it's unwanted. But I think I'm just trying to square it away as to why we're going back the way from. Yeah, we all fully buy into the hybrid. Majority of us fully support the hybrid going forward. But in this particular instance, because it's the statutory meeting, we're insisting on everybody to be there in person. And the other aspect of it is, unless you've got COVID, then we'll allow that person to dial in. Again, if you're ill or if you've got COVID, there's varying degrees. If you've got COVID, you may well have it bad. Hopefully you don't, but you may have mild symptoms, or you may have it really, really bad, and you couldn't lift your head off the pallet. You couldn't actually attend any meetings because you'd have be no use. So I'm just trying to square all these away together as to see what is the purpose of this particular recommendation, and how does it square with protocols, etc. So it's one I've just got to chew over, I think. Thanks,
Jim. Thank you, Jim. I'm going to ask the Chief Executive, Louise, to speak.
Thank you very much, Provost. And just to give some reassurance, it's the importance of the meeting, because it's the first statutory meeting and it'll be the meeting that decides the council. We think it has enough gravitas that it should be in person. And the people being able to dial in if they have COVID affords the members the same opportunity that we afford our staff at this moment in time. If staff are ill or off with COVID, they are still able to work. And so, but if they are ill, they are off. And so it's just the same that we're implying to the members as we're implying to the employees. So it's just to give some reassurance that we do think the importance of the meeting, it will be the meeting that decides the council, that we would like it to be in person in the town hall. Like everyone, I hope that that happens, but having a plan B is very important, and we've realised that over the last 2 years, and so that is what the plan B is.
I'm trying to sum that up, Jim and others. It is a very important meeting, and ideally we want everyone there. You want, and I want everyone, every elected member to be there. But we've got to look at various contingencies about illness which prevents attendance. In any case, we have a motion. Do we have an amendment?
Yeah.
Councillor Brooks.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I would like to reamend the fact that we have our first strategy meeting in person, as we have done for many years as a council.
And the seconder, yes.
I'm happy to second that. I also would say that I really worry about this report, because I think it deals a blow to the future of the chambers here. I think it plays into the hands of those who don't like the chamber and don't want to be in the chamber. Provost.
Thanks, David. Stephen, can you reiterate your motion?
I'm simply moving the recommendations in the report,
Right.
Provost, which delegates authority essentially to the Chief Exec and approves the protocol. And Councillor Moran has agreed to second.
Right, okay. So, you want it?
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Provost. So if we go to the vote, the councillors with the motion by Councillor McKay and the amendment by Councillor Brooks. Motion or amendment? Councillor Alfeld?
Motion.
Provost Brennan?
Motion.
Councillor Brooks?
Amendment.
Councillor Clougherty?
Motion.
Councillor Crowther?
Motion.
Councillor Curley?
Motion.
Councillor Dorian's not here, is he?
No.
Thank you. Councillor Jackson?
Motion.
Councillor MacLeod?
Motion.
Councillor McKay?
Motion.
Councillor McCormick?
Motion.
Councillor McElhenney?
Motion.
Councillor Mackenzie?
Motion.
Councillor McVeigh?
Motion.
Sorry, was that motion?
Go away.
Yes,
Was
motion. Provost. Motion.
Apologies, thank you. Councillor Moran?
Motion.
Motion. Councillor Nelson?
Motion.
Councillor Quinn?
Motion.
Councillor Rebecca?
Motion.
Councillor Robertson?
Motion.
And Councillor Wilson.
Amendment.
So motion carried by 17 votes to 2.
Thanks very much, Ian. Thank you. Item 5 is contract cost increase and supply issues. So it's saying what everyone knows. Over the past 2 or more years, both the local and the national economies have been hit hard by a number of hammer blows. Any one of these on its own would have been serious, but the coincidence of these crises presents us with a perfect storm. Alan, would you like to speak about a perfect storm?
Thank you, Provost, and good afternoon, everyone. Really, as the Provost is in.
Turn up volume.
Not hearing you terribly well, Alan.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Sorry about that, and good afternoon, elected members. As you indicated, Provost, this report probably just says what most members of and members of the public already know, is there is a number of factors all coming together at the one time that are causing issues. But in the absence of a Policy and Resources Committee, it was felt appropriate to bring a report before elected members because of 2 potential significant impacts. One is the pressure that it's putting on the council's revenue and capital budgets in terms of the non-pay inflation allowance. and we're seeing some costs, going up by 40%, 50%. And obviously the council's budget wasn't predicated on that basis. And I've given a commitment that I'll bring a report back to the June Policy and Resources Committee, just indicating where we are with the likes of the non-pay inflation. And the second issue is to do with the delivery of the capital programme. So there are supply issues, so there's shortages of some supplies which have got worse in recent months. So we're aware there's been delays in getting IT equipment. There have been issues to do with the supply of steel and timber, which were prevalent during the days of COVID. And now we're getting issues with bitumen, fertiliser and things like that. And so it's to manage members' expectations regarding the delivery of the capital programme and the scope of what can be delivered through the capital programme. But again, that will be reported to the new council from June onwards. So really it was to just simply to raise the issue, give a commitment that I'll bring a report back to the June Policy and Resources Committee, and we'll continue to monitor the situation at officer level and report to members as appropriate. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much, Alan. It was entirely comprehensible. Thank you. Very succinct report. Councillor McVeigh, Tommy, do you wish to ask a question?
Yes, thank you, Provost. A question for Mr. Pucken. Alan, given the seriousness of the situation which is going to face the next council, have we had or do we intend to have any discussions with the Scottish Government on this, either directly or via COSLA?
Alan?
Thank you, Provost, and thanks, Councillor McVeigh. Yes, I personally have raised this with COSLA, who have stood up their supplier group. They had a supplier group in the early days of COVID. Remember when there was pressures on businesses and whether they should get paid for at a time when services weren't able to be delivered, etc. And that liaises with the Scottish Government. So that group is meeting. And matters have been highlighted to them as they arise, because obviously Inverclyde isn't living in a vacuum here, that all 32 councils in Scotland and other public sector bodies are facing similar pressures in different areas, if you see what I mean, to do with materials and to do with availability and budget impact.
Right, so Tommy, are you happy with that?
Yep, that's fine, Provost, thank you.
I don't see any further questions on this. Do we agree with the recommendations? Thank you. The next item, item 6 in your papers, is the Inverclyde Task Force, and first, I really have to commend all those here who successfully, that's officers and members, who successfully pursued this development. Inverclyde faces and has faced quite unique challenges. We can't predict the end product of this development, that is a task force, but it has the potential to do some enduring good for our citizens. Now, I'm not sure which officer will speak on this, whether it's Stuart or Louise. Stuart.
In November of last year, the Council Leader and the Chief Executive met with the Cabinet Secretary for Finance and Economy to examine opportunities to address long-term issues affecting Inverclyde via a task force. Since then, there has been much toing and froing with colleagues in government. Terms of reference have been established and suggestions have been made in respect of membership. Provost, we're keen to go on with this, involving a range of organisations identified in Appendix 1. The Council is asked to agree the terms of reference, that a task force is established. It will report to the Council and the Alliance Board on a 6-monthly basis, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks very much, Stuart. Are there the Councillor McLeany? Jim, you have a question?
Yes, a comment, Provost. Thanks very much. Yeah, it's great to see this paper coming before us, and yeah, to echo your comments there, commend the Council Leader and the Chief Executive for driving this forward and getting to sit down with the Cabinet Secretary and getting Stuart as well for his input to get the terms of reference written. Fully support the recommendations apart from the second one. I would look to put forward an amendment rather reporting on a 6-month due to the urgency and we want to see things getting done. I would ask that we change that to a 4-monthly report. That gives it a wee bit more, even if there's not little to report, I still think it gives us a bit more gravitas as to say we're putting the high priority on it. So I would ask that as a put forward a recommendation to an amendment, sorry, to make it to the 4-month report rather than 6.
Thanks, Jim. I want to ask Stuart how he feels about that, about it being reduced from a 6-monthly report to a 4-monthly report to the council. Stuart.
The important thing with this is that the council and the Alliance Board receive regular reports. We were keen that we weren't not reporting anything coming forward, so that's why we'd suggested 6 months. But if members are minded to change that to 4 months, then it wouldn't cause officers any concerns.
Okay. You're quite happy with that, I take it, Jim?
I'm happy with that, Provost, but it's up to the members to whether they're happy or not.
Yes, I do know that. It's not just you and I running the show. Just think what a mess we could make of it, you know. Jim Coughlin, Councillor Jim.
Yeah, thanks, Provost. It's just on the makeup of the task group. I just get the feeling in knowing, being with Louise and Stephen at the leaders' meetings we have, there seems to be a wee bit of dragging their feet here. Have we got a commitment that from the Scottish Government side it will be a minister-led? Because we know how important that is through our previous task force via Ferguson's or via Texas. So do we have a commitment it will be a minister on the task force rather than just a civil servant? Don't know who can help me in that one.
Louise, I think, could answer that.
Through yourself, Provost, no, we don't have a commitment as yet to having a minister on it. I have had a conversation with Stuart McMillan, who said he would go away and have a conversation with some ministers to see if they could prioritise it. And equally, we do have a name of a civil servant who will be involved in it, but we'll continue to pursue it. I think it's important that officers get together and start to do some of the work in preparation for the first meeting. And we could do that relatively quickly, and it's important because we engage the UK government as well to be involved in relation to the task force. So I'm keen that we get the officers together and do most of the work so that we can have our first meeting once we get the new council.
Thanks, Louise. Are you very happy with that, Jim?
Not fairly happy, because I think we would want a commitment of a Scottish Government minister, but I'm happy with the answer Louise has given us.
Yeah, I think everyone would agree with you, Jim, but it's not within our gift to assure or nominate a Scottish Government minister. Stephen?
Yeah, thanks, Provost. I think I agree with Jim. Ideally, it would be helpful if we did have a government minister on the task force, maybe co-chairing the task force with the council leader. We did invite Kate Forbes to be a member, but she's declined to be a member, but hopefully we can get a government minister involved. With regard to Councillor McElhenny's suggestion, don't have any difficulty if he wants to propose that amendment. I mean, obviously the intention in terms of the membership of the task force is there will be all the sort of key leaders of the groups within the council on the task force, so they will be getting regular updates and progress reports, but I don't have any difficulty wanting to go to a report every 4 months rather than every 6 months.
Right, thanks, Stephen. Elizabeth?
Just really, Provost, want to extend my gratitude again to the council leader and the chief executive for taking this across the line as well. It's something that I've lobbied to chief executives about and spoken to Stephen about on many occasions, and it is great that they've been able to get this across the line and actually have this task force set up for Inverclyde. It is really exciting to see what can come out of it, and I think having a sort of regular review, initially having the 6-month review of the task force that is put in at the bottom of the terms of reference, I think is absolutely crucial. I think it's a really, really important thing to keep. But I do think that having 4 monthly reports would be fine. I think that takes us, if the task force is meeting every 8 weeks, then that would be every second time the task force meets. And I think that is a good momentum for ensuring that it does become a task force of action. So I wouldn't have any problems with that either.
Thanks very much, Elizabeth. Ronnie, Councillor Alfield, Ronnie.
Thanks, Provost. Just to endorse the point made by Jim Clockerty about the importance that it's led by a minister, because some of us will recall the dozens and dozens of meetings that we had on the Greenock Dunoon ferry, both this side and the Dunoon side, and none of it was led by a minister. It was always led by civil servants, and frankly it was shambolic, and we did not move on one iota. In fact, we used to go back the way. So I think it is absolutely imperative that a minister is involved in that task force. Thanks, Provost.
Thanks, Ronnie. I don't see other questions. David?
Yeah, it's just a comment more regarding the constitution of the task force. I really agree with the idea, but I totally agree with Councillor Clockerty and Councillor Alfield. Unless we have a minister someday in that senior position, I'm pleased the Chief Executive is pursuing that. But I think we should not ignore the Scottish office here, because much of the money going forward is going to come from Westminster, where they will replace the funds we used to get in Scotland from the European Union. So I think the Scottish office plays a big part in this in terms of the monies they have available. We're already seen with the Levelling Up Fund, we're already working, Mr Jimmonson's working on projects already. I think that is a port of call we should be going to. Thank you.
Thank you. There are no further questions, are there? No further. Do we agree the recommendations? Thank you.
4 months or 6
months. Yes, with the 3.1 brackets 2, the wording has been changed in the last 3 words to 4 monthly thereafter, not 6 monthly thereafter.
Thank you, Provost.
Everybody's quite happy with that.
Yeah.
Speaking of it, it's too late.
No, I admit I was too late. I was trying to get on right the last minute there, but I've missed my chance.
You can tell me in private.
Well, I was going to make a political point, but maybe it's best that I didn't do that.
Maybe it's best. I think wiser councils have prevailed, right?
Should.
What do you think these people are? Politicians? The item 7 is the capital strategy 2022 to 2032. It's very, very important that when reading it, I tend to find some paragraphs are in voodoo. That's no. I'm not impugning the clarity of the order, but it's just I find money disturbing, right? Okay, can you speak on this, Alan?
Thank you, Provost. I think you've summed up the last 35 years of my life there. The strategy has been to the Policy and Resources Committee, which remitted it to the Council, and I'm just simply happy to answer any questions that members may have on it.
Are there any questions?
No.
No. No questions from the remote councillors? No. We agree the recommendations?
Yes.
Great. Item number 8 is equally important, and it's Treasury Management Strategy Statement and Annual Investment Strategy 2022 to 2032 to 2025-26. Alan, again.
Thank you, Provost. Very little to add to this, which again has been to the Policy and Resources Committee in the usual annual format. The only point I would highlight to members is that for the new council there will be a comprehensive training session on Treasury matters organised for the summer of 2022. I don't have a date for that yet, but new councillors will get a date as part of their induction.
Thanks a lot. Thanks very much. Everything you know, when you're speaking, it becomes clear to me what I was reading. It's actually, I can't see any way that this can be made. You can make an idiot's guide of this, you know, because the idiots are getting smarter all the time and confusing themselves even more. Right. Now, we now go to, now we've dealt with item number 9. So when we're not talking about the business in the appendix, we are going to Jim's item is acknowledging the retirement of 4 elected members. A request from Councillor Jim Ackley. Do you want to speak on this, Jim?
Yeah, thanks, Provost. I'm delighted to bring this forward, this member request on behalf of all elected members, hopefully. We are certainly coming to the end of a few eras with the retirement of political heavyweights Alfield, Dorian, Rebecca and Brennan. What a half-back line indeed. Addressing each of you in turn, I knew of Ronnie through the Greenock Yak, subsequently getting to know him as an excellent convener of the licensing board and from many fine contributions and debates. Always good for a tale of his footballing past, stories that you could listen to endlessly. With Jerry, I'd seen him in church, but got to know him through his convenership of the General Purposes Board. His no-nonsense chairing, sometimes dry humour and wit, was both illuminating and entertaining. To Chiano, Marie told me he was their TV repairman. Synonymous with Diane and the Burns' Lounge, convener of the quickest meetings in the schedule, often taking us on a literary meander from whatever we were discussing. A walking encyclopedia on solar panels. To you, Provost, although I was a pupil at St Columba's when you were there, I wasn't fortunate enough to have been taught by you. However, you did have a major influence on all 4 of my sons at Notre Dame, possibly inspiring 2 to study history and politics at university. No, not Christopher, he is self-taught. A fond memory from this place was when I happened to pop into an Inverclyde tourist group tour. You were waxing lyrical, recounting the building's history with ease and your usual good humour. The 4 of you have been a credit to the council, your family, and of course your constituents. I'd like to thank you, Provost, Ronnie, Jerry and Chano for your service, support and friendship, and wish you all the best for the future. Thanks, Provost.
Hear, hear.
Thanks. There's a bit of wild cheering, Jim. And thanks very much for your kind words. Now, the only thing I would ask is that you transcribe those words onto a piece of paper so that I can carry it around with me. Right? Thanks very much, Jim. Stephen.
Yeah, thanks, Provost, and thanks to Jim for bringing this particular request before the council today. As we know, we've got a reception tomorrow, so I'll be relatively brief in terms of my remarks. And I think it is only right that we do acknowledge publicly the voluntary severance of Councillors Alfeld, Brennan, Doreen and Rebecca, who between them have a combined service of some 74 years to the council and the wider community. Isn't that pretty remarkable? Shanna herself, I think, has got 34 of those 74 years. And they've all made a first-class contribution to the council over those years. And I have to say, they will all be missed, both as colleagues, but also, as Jim says, as friends. And I think people get an impression of the council from maybe what they read in the Telegraph or occasionally if they watch live streams of meetings. But I think things behind the scenes are pretty different, and that we all generally get on and are reasonably good friends to each other. And I think, to me, the skill of for any politician is to learn when's the time to quit. And there's been too many, I have to say, unfortunately, in the past who went on longer than they should have went on and had suffered the consequences. But I think these four sensible men have made the right decision for them and for their families. It is important that you put your families first. Unfortunately, Councillor Wilson hasn't yet mastered that particular skill. So we are stuck with him for another 5 years. Only kidding, David. Only kidding. Good to see you back. But Provost, I think while we're recognising the contribution of those who are voluntarily stepping down, I think it's important we recognise the contribution of all elected members during the past 5 years, and indeed those who've obviously served for more than one term. While some of us know for definite that we are going to be back, looking at Christopher's pleased face there, and clearly the majority are facing the electorate in 2 weeks' time, and we simply don't know the outcome of the election. And some people will be back and some people may not be back. But I think every single person who served on this council over the last 5 years deserves the gratitude of the community for the service that they've put in, the long hours that they've put in serving our community. And I think we should absolutely recognise that. So no matter what happens on the morning of the 6th of May, I would like to thank every single one of you for the contribution that you've made to the council over the last 5 years. I think we should also obviously thank our officers, both past and present, for all the support they've given to us as elected members during the last council term. I know sometimes we moan a wee bit about our officers, but I actually think on the whole we have first-class officers in our council who provide a first-class service to us as elected members, and more importantly, a first-class service to the wider community. So, as I said, no matter what happens in the future for everybody, I wish you all the best of luck and good wishes for the future.
Yeah. Thanks very much, Stephen. And on behalf of Ronnie, I'll speak for himself, on behalf of Ronnie, Jerry and Channel, I'd like to thank both you, Stephen, and Jim for doing this and letting us sit there and rest in our laurels and kid ourselves on what fine fellows we were. But thanks very much to both of you. Is there any Elizabeth?
Thanks, Provost. Just a quick comment from me. It's kind of odd to go, we're all remote at the minute, but there would be a kind of group hug at this point if I was in the room, I'm not going to lie. But just a couple of personal comments. I just want to thank the four who are leaving us for everything they've taught a newbie like myself about being a ward councillor, about actually holding and stewarding the role that we have. It's been incredible to learn from you all. Channel, sometimes Channel has been the first person on the phone at a tricky time or after a difficult meeting, and you can always rely that Channel will be there going, right, hen, how are you? You know what I mean? So it's been good to have Channel there doing that. And Jerry, I just actually want to kind of comment on Jerry's role as the veterans champion. It's been such a vital role, and the covenant that we've made with veterans and the way that he's led and honoured that has been pretty amazing. So just couple of personal comments there. Martin, I don't think I've ever been in a room where you've not made me laugh. And I think we all kind of have that moment where we go, right, what is the provost going to say that's going to make us all absolutely buckle and howl? So it's having that ability and having that role and being able to be the type of provost that you've been has been such an absolute joy. And Councillor McElhinney is absolutely right about Ronnie's stories. I hope to read them in a book someday, but just some personal comments from me. The past 5 years would have been an awful lot harder without the wisdom of those 74 years collectively brought to bear when it's been needed. So thank you.
Thanks, and on behalf of all of us, thank you very much. Elizabeth, it's most generous of you to say that. Right, Ronnie is going to speak now on what a difference he's made.
Thanks, thanks, Provost. Just a very quick comment. I didn't intend to say anything today. Maybe I'll have the opportunity to do that tomorrow. But thanks, Jim, for your kind words. I'm not sure about the comment you made about the heavyweights. We are not on a lot of weight in the last few years, you know. And I'm glad Rose was in the room when that heavyweight. I'd been on a diet immediately if I'm not on one just now. I would just like to say that the 15 years have really just completely flown in. And as far as retirement's concerned, just a very quick one. I used to meet a team of older gentlemen, let's put it that way, every Saturday morning, and they put the world right, put me right, told me all the things that I was doing wrong. We used to go for a cup of tea. And I knew one of them from my time in IBM, and I knew he had retired about 8 or 9 months before it. And I said to him one Saturday morning, "Well, are you missing things in IBM?" He said to me, "Ronnie, I'm not missing the job, but I'm really missing the people that I used to work with." I said, "Oh, well, I suppose that's understandable." He said, "But it's worse than that." He says, "I'm even missing the people I used to hate when I worked in IBM." So I'm not as strong as that, obviously, but maybe I'll have the opportunity to say a few words tomorrow. But thanks very much, Jim, and thanks very much, Stephen and Provost, for your kind words today. Thanks.
Thanks, Ronnie. I'm going to close the meeting soon and I'm not going to close the meeting. There's another speaker, but when Janet's finished speaking, I'm going to be like a rat from a trap in case I do something to destroy your perception of me, right?
Rob, can sit down, it's all right.
Yes.
Robert, I've probably here and seen more Provost and enough, probably someone that wish they had seen me. But everybody has their own little way of dealing with things. And you're an expert. I would hate to be a lawyer defending you in a case, even if you were guilty, because there's no chance, because you would get yourself off. Marvellous way of turning around, taking the heat out of an argument. You've got a nice smile and the way you say things. And you've always, and it must be something to do with your teaching, because every person I know that's went through school and you taught them, think the world of you.
Thanks.
And I think you deserve it. And seriously, because education is the most important thing we can do right now for our children. So you were a star, and I think that's marvellous. To the rest of the councillors, it's leaving. They've all done their jobs. Sure, we didn't always agree, but let's go on with it. But the most important persons in here are all the staff, because they've had to suffer everyone else, from the chief exec to the cleaners down at the not wrong with cleaners or the man that opens the door, whatever it is, but they've done it marvellously. And during the last 2 years, they suffered as well as we did. And I can only say thanks to them all.
Thank you again, Shana, for those heartfelt words. Thank you. I'm beginning, it doesn't happen to me often, but I'm beginning to feel embarrassed. So, if there are no further contributions, we'll close the meeting and listen, all the best to every single one of you in the elections. All the very best. I'll be looking at this with a great deal of interest and following all your election campaigns. And I do wish all of you nothing but the best. particularly the Labour ones.
Promise. This is in the appendix.
But are there any questions on the business in the appendix?
No. No, great.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you.